And we are back. It is 7 o'clock in the East. It is 4 o'clock in the wet and woolly West. I hope everybody's safe out there. This is your Tuesday, August 22nd edition of the Strategy Session. I am your air traffic controller for the evening, Reed Galen. Joining me as always is host of Rick Wilson's The Enemies List podcast, found wherever your favorite podcast app is, author of Everything Trump Touches Dies and Running with the Devil, the one and the only, the Rick Wilson. Hi, Rick.
Reed, how are you?
I'm well. And as always, joining me, Stuart Stevens, senior advisor to the Lincoln Project, author of It Was All a Lie and an upcoming book coming out this October that we'll talk more about as we get closer, and longtime Republican strategist, now former Republican strategist, Stuart Stevens. Stu, welcome.
Thanks for asking me to the party, dude.
And we missed Joe, but Joe, we hope everybody feels better, and we will see you next week. All right, guys. So we are now about 24 hours away from the event that won't be. It will be a debate in which, as Stuart, you like to say, you had to sign a pledge to go to support the guy who wouldn't sign the pledge and wouldn't go.
Yeah, I've been thinking about all day how glad I am not to be in a debate prep for this. And not to be somewhere, in a room trying to remind somebody of their deeply held beliefs. This thing is just going to be an absolute shit show. First of all, if you look at it, how long is this thing? An hour and a half?
90 minutes supposedly.
Minutes. And what are they up to now? Is it 9 candidates or 8 candidates?
I think it's 8. I think Asa Hutchinson got in just under the wire.
He did. So Asa is going to be in. So
Suarez and Hurd and Perry Johnson are all very, very angry today.
Larry Elder.
Yeah. And Larry Elder, they're trying to put together a kids' table debate.
Yeah. So each candidate is going to get 10 minutes max.
If that, yeah.
Yeah, if that. So the whole thing is I don't know.
All right. So Rick, when I had Stuart on the Lincoln Project podcast last week, and we talked about some of this, but let's share it for the folks who didn't listen. But if you haven't, you should. There's an opening statement. There's a closing statement. We know that people will filibuster. Right. But to Stuart's point, to extend on Stuart's point, if you're in debate prep and you have 60 to 90 seconds for an opening salvo, right? Mm-hmm. And you know that the person that you need to beat won't be there, but you're also afraid to say anything bad about him. Like, how do you spend 90 seconds? Like, what do you say? Look, we're such in bizarro land at this point.
This is an exercise in futility. And we all know this. And frankly, most of the people on the stage know it too. You've got 2 categories of candidates on the stage. You've got Christie and Asa Hutchinson, who are the not Trump-ish candidates who have still, by going on that stage, sworn they will vote for Donald Trump if he's the nominee, and are going to vote for Donald Trump if he's the nominee. And you've got the Trump wannabes, and that ranges from Tim Scott to Vivek Ramaswamy to Nikki Haley to Ron DeSantis. But none of these people in that opening statement is going to say something that will magically unlock the MAGA base for them in the primary. And everything they say in this opening statement and in every other opening statement they're going to make in all the debates is going to alienate them further and further and further from the rest of the country. I mean, Ron DeSantis basically is a tropical mullah right now. It's all woke. Everything must be punished. He's the least fun candidate on the stage. Tim Scott, Nikki Haley, they're all fantasizing about somehow coming in 3rd or 4th in their own home state. The Vivek Ramaswamy has got this little moment of media buzz, but he's going to have to confront that he's now on the record proven to be a 9/11 truther, which I thought there was nothing more loathsome than COVID truthers, but there you go. Anyway, it's going to be a very weird, constrained debate because, as you said, they can't make a real case against Donald Trump. The closest they'll get is to say, I'm more electable than Trump. And the MAGA base doesn't believe that.
So, Stuart, this week, CBS and YouGov had a survey out. It had Trump, I think, at 61, DeSantis at 17 or something, and Ramaswamy at 9, whatever adds up to 85. Okay, so 85% of people surveyed, right, are somewhere between MAGA, ultra MAGA, conspiracy theory, 9/11 truthers. That leaves 15% roughly of the electorate. Near as I could tell, last time I checked, 15 doesn't get you to 50% plus one anywhere. So how, to Rick's point, is it possible for Asa Hutchinson or Chris Christie to do anything other than sort of scream into the wind?
No. They're running for legacy and because they actually believe that the party should be different. And I think Christie feels badly that by his support of Trump. I mean, look, on January 6th, Trump tried to kill Pence, but he tried to kill Christie in the debate prep. So, I mean, he still was supporting him with COVID. I've always believed in debate prep that a candidate needs to go in with 2 or 3 goals. And you'd be very clear about it. What is your strategy? Debate is just a tactic.
Right.
If I was in the DeSantis campaign, I would debate Joe Biden. That's it. That's all I would do. I wouldn't talk about anybody else. I'd have 1 or 2 lines. I wouldn't take to deflect for anybody else attacking. I wouldn't get into a food fight. I don't think it's necessary. His whole premise, to the extent he has a premise to his candidacy, is that he can beat Joe Biden. He'll be better. So he ought to debate Joe Biden. And then I think these other candidates, except Christie and Hutchinson, have a different path. But if I was advising Scott or Haley or any of these people, I would say your job is to kill Ron DeSantis. And you've got to have the attitude that one of you is going to walk off the stage alive. And don't worry about anything else. But in my opening statement, I would say, I'm up here with a lot of successful politicians and one failed governor, and that's Ron DeSantis. Mm-hmm. And as we speak, Florida is in a crisis of insurance, and just go on. Attack the guy.
If somebody doesn't mention that Florida suddenly has leprosy again, spreading through Florida on that stage, their debate prep people suck.
I've always said that there are more examples of leprosy in America than voter fraud. So that's just,
and all of them in Florida, apparently. So,
but that's
Rick. I hope you're washing your hands regularly,
constantly.
Yeah, I think they need to go into this, and instead, I think that they're going to be very muddled. They're going to be up there, just sort of like somebody's going to have told Ron DeSantis to be likable,
right?
Like, smile, Ron.
Give me a
break.
And
so I mean, that's the thing, though. Is so let's talk about DeSantis, because I want to spend some time getting to the front runner who won't be there but will be on screen at the time. So you've got a DeSantis. Last week Jeff Rowe, who, if he is not attempting to get DeSantis to drop out, Rick, then I don't know what he's doing, because his advice is horrific.
All my sources in Virginia tell me that Jeff Rowe is desperately trying to get back into the circle with Glenn Youngkin and basically promising to take the DeSantis super PAC and give it to Youngkin. The guy, he puts the shameless isn't even in this description of this guy at this point.
But I mean, think about it. So now you've got Ron and Casey DeSantis, who are sort of a match set in this campaign, Stuart.
Yep.
Where they've been given terrible advice publicly, right? Very publicly, to attack Ramaswamy and to defend Trump. He probably won't do well. He might do one. I don't know if he'll do the other. I'm not sure which is which, though. But no matter what, people are going to say, well, his people told him to do this and he didn't do any of it. Right. And to Rick's point, like, I've never heard of this sort of super PAC with dueling loyalties where it's like one guy drops out, so all these people who give tens of millions of dollars will suddenly be good with somebody else. Like, that's, I mean, maybe Youngkin is sort of vanilla enough in a red vest to be okay with it, but still, like, this, again, guys, we're so far off the map here.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. The problem DeSantis has in the debate is the problem DeSantis has in the campaign, and that is he's yet to articulate a rationale for his candidacy. So he bounces all around the place. I mean, he's the guy never back down. And last week he was basically suing the happiness company, Disney, for peace. He gave a speech where literally in 2 minutes he said woke 14 times. This is just sort of like an episode of Veep that is live and is spending a lot of money. Right. Again, if the guy wanted to use this, he would have to use it as an audition of what he would do against Joe Biden. And in that case, he could probably do himself some good, but I just don't think temperamentally he can ignore attacks. No. I don't think that he can.
No, I think that's right, Stuart. I don't think that guy has
take the bait, and he hasn't presented any policy yet. His only real formal policy was that Ukraine-Russia war, the genocide in Ukraine, was a territorial dispute, which he then sort of walked back 24 hours later when he got pressured by Tucker Carlson. So it's kind of a mess of campaign.
But Rick, that's one thing though that I think that we talked about this way back, I think in January or February, which is Trump is not a politician. He's the leader of a movement and he's a showman. He's a carnival barker. The rest of these people are politicians. So Trump can say whatever it is he's going to say. He never backs off of it, right? Never. Because the truth is he might say something 180 degrees different 3 days later. It doesn't matter anyway. DeSantis, as Stuart said about Ukraine, like he got far out over his skis and then he decided he'd gone too far because I'm sure many of his donors got upset with him. The only person who seems to not follow that trend is this Vivek Ramaswamy, who's, doing Eminem raps. He's he's showing himself playing tennis and doing burpees with his wife in their very modest home gym. So he's the other one who seems to get that the Democrats want a messiah and Republicans want a show.
Yeah, look, and Ramaswamy has demonstrated in the last few weeks that he does put on a show. He does do the stunt sort of things that the Republicans like, because we have replaced philosophy and politics with spectacle and performance, and that's something that conservatives at one time thought that was awful. Mm-hmm. That was an abandonment of our principles and our values, and it was. But now they've reconfigured themselves where they're looking for someone who's as exciting and compelling and wild as Trump. Now, look, does Ramaswamy ever make the cut with Republican base voters? Please, come on. It's the same sort of hopium, I think, that a lot of these candidates have, and they misapprehend what the Republican base really is. After being all Trump all the time, it is primarily now motivated by social and racial animus, and they don't like anybody who is quote unquote better than them, and they don't like people of other races. So honestly, when you get down to it, Vivek Ramaswamy, Nikki Haley, and Tim Scott are flying in the face of some fairly well demonstrated Republican Party proclivities that no matter how good they are on that stage, it's not going to get them home.
Well, but I would say one thing, Stuart, just slightly different than that, which is that, the Gen X white guy, right? Ramaswamy can't talk to them, right? He's that same sort of Elon Musk, Joe Rogan silliness, right? Anti-establishment. I went to private schools. I went to, big colleges. I went to, grad school. I make a lot of money. I live in a big house, yet somehow, the world still owes me, or I'm pissed off at the world. And I feel like Ramaswamy gives them, again, maybe not for the nomination, but he certainly as a surrogate could later on say, this is, Joe Biden's a communist. He's old. He's a Marxist, blah, 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 blah. He's woke. The world is changing and he wants to change it, but I'm with Trump.
Yeah. Look, if Andrew Yang was a 9/11 truther who supported Putin, it would be Ramaswamy. That's pretty much what he is. He's filling that niche. And yeah, it's just a vanity candidacy. Life for him is more interesting in this moment if he wasn't running for president. Mm-hmm. That's really it. This is why people buy sports cars. It's why they take up hobbies. It's why they have affairs. It's not why you get elected president. So, an early midlife crisis is not really a compelling reason to run for president, and that's what we're watching here. He's not a serious human being. Right. And it can be fun. But why not be Ramaswamy? Why not? You can what's the pain of it now? Maybe it sounds a little bit different. It's kind of hip. You can say this. Yeah. But this guy isn't going to get a single delegate to the convention.
No. Look, his best chance is getting Secretary of Transportation Ramaswamy in the Trump administration if he doesn't butt up against Trump too hard.
Right.
That's his best shot.
So speaking of Trump and people selling out their values and their souls, Rick. So Trump will not be on the debate stage, but he will be doing a thing, I assume, live on Twitter with Tucker Carlson.
Yes.
So tell us if you can, if anybody who's not under the effects of ayahuasca can, appreciate what exactly that conversation is going to sound like.
Look, Tucker wants so badly to be back in the zone with Trump because his departure from Fox, he blew his moment. Right after he left Fox, he had a moment to establish something different, and he didn't. He basically left himself in the same role that he previously had been supported by teams of producers and researchers and writers and all that stuff. And so on his own, Tucker's not great material. But Donald Trump and Tucker, that's an opportunity for both of them to leverage and be in the center of the dialogue again, in the center of the debate again. And Trump will look to Tucker for pure validation. And he understands that Tucker can play an essential role inside the right-wing media ecosystem of reinforcing over and over that the prosecution against him is corrupt. It's the deep state. He's being imprisoned by the Biden regime. It's the Biden crime family attacking Donald Trump. So he knows Tucker's going to be a great amplifier for that. And look, and this is a Tucker, Elon, Trump production. What could possibly go wrong for democracy?
Yeah, that's the thing. That's the thing. Probably the single most disastrous moment that anybody's had in the campaign was DeSantis' announcement on Twitter. So Trump spans the universe and says, well, that's what I want to do. How are you in the room when you go like, well, that was just like such a goddamn disaster. We should do it too.
We should do that. That stove can't still be hot.
What's the logic of that? I mean, you could go and do anything, but you choose to do something that is proven to be
stupid,
a looming disaster. I think Trump ought to be in the look. God forbid. Yeah. I was advising Trump. I think he ought to be in the debate. I think that he would be bigger than these candidates. I think that they would be afraid to attack him, except for Christie. And I think he would dominate the stage. I think he would remind people what they like about Trump. So he'll be in the next debate. I don't know what the logic was that he decided not to do this.
It was all about pissing off Fox. It was all about pissing off.
Yeah, that's exactly what I read.
Yeah, and
exactly
so
it was.
And speaking of the Rupert family, the Murdoch family, Rick, I did something that is against my own best interest. I listened to Steve Bannon's podcast today because I do think it is important to understand the world as they see it, even as twisted as it might be. And it's interesting to hear Bannon and all his guys, right? It's the Democratic Party, the Republican Party, the Uniparty, right? The Murdochs, right? They're all working to keep Trump from the nomination, from running again. He had some pollster on whose name I can't recall who said, and this is what we've been saying, that if by some, I guess miracle is the right word, I don't know, Trump weren't the nominee, that 28% of the Republicans that this guy surveyed said they'd write him in. And that's like 20 million votes gone. And that's, 40 states. That's a blowout for Democrats.
Reed, this is the reflection of the fact that Trump is a terrorist. He's wearing a bomb vest. He's got his hand on the trigger. And the Republican Party knows if he takes his hand off of it and walks out, it's going to blow up and kill. It's going to blow up and kill them all. Mm-hmm. If they try to kill him, he's going to let the trigger go, and it's going to kill them all. He's trapped them. And you and I were talking earlier today, Reed, about the elites in the party who do not want Trump, who did not want Trump, who would much prefer Ron DeSantis or Tim Scott or Nikki Haley. All of them will make an accommodation very soon because they understand if Trump's not their nominee and you have this massive walkout of Republican base voters, then Mitch McConnell gets the Senate blown out from him by 6 or 7 seats, that McCarthy loses the House by a degree to which he can't come back from it for 2 or 3 cycles. You might have 40 seats blow out in the House. So that model has terrified them. So they are stuck. They're like, if we put Trump on the ticket, we're going to lose the presidency. If we don't put Trump on the ticket, we're going to lose the presidency and everything else. It's a really tough spot.
And Stuart, this is something I think you said the other day when we were talking, which is after the elections last year, the same people who will get behind Trump again were not upset with him because of trying to overthrow the election or any of the things he said or done, or the disaster of his COVID response, but because he cost them power. And so now this is where we have to look at it, which is when we say the party's irredeemable, it's irredeemable because they will not see next year as an opportunity to make sure he gets blown out, but take the blowout, take the pain, right? Take your own, whatever medical thing you have to take to get better, understanding that it's going to be painful. It's going to take time to recover. They're like, no. I want the worst of both worlds, Stuart.
Yeah, but it goes to the sort of fundamental question of like, why does the Republican Party exist now? What is the purpose of it? And Trump. It really exists, as far as I can see, to defeat Democrats. There's no coherent governing philosophy out there of what it means to be a conservative. So that they're just sort of lost out there. And until they can come up with that, they're going to continue to lose. That's why they have so much trouble with younger voters. They just talking past these voters. Why they have so much trouble with non-white voters. They can't come up with any sort of rationale for it. And I don't. Trump is what the party wants to be. So it's a grievance party. It's a white grievance party. He's the most vivid, angry, enjoyable freak of a white grievance. The whole idea that a guy who was a millionaire before he graduated from high school is white grievance is just like so classically ironic. Like you're saying about Ramaswamy, what is the problem here? What am I mad about?
Right.
But it's until the party could come up with that, there's really no coherent reason that a center-right party in America should exist.
Yeah, it is all about, just retention of power and service to Trump. That's the entire definitional nature of the party now, and nothing else in this debate is going to change it. Let me ask you this, guys. If you were prepping Chris Christie in this thing, because Chris Christie's the one guy on the stage who has been the furthest out there attacking Trump. If you were prepping Christie, would you keep him on Trump, or would you decapitate DeSantis and a couple of the other ones just to open the field up even more in New Hampshire?
Well, I've actually, I worked for Christie in all his races and did his debate preps. He's best when he's a prosecutor. So think about him in that last New Hampshire debate when he went after Rubio.
Oh, yes.
So
oh, yes.
Yeah, remember, he just kind of like handed Rubio his head. And said, like, here it is. I think it would be best for him to just go after Trump in this debate and define himself as that. Because you go back to that 10 minutes, right? You don't want to seem like you're mad at the world. You don't want to seem like, I'm up here. It can't be a drive-by shooting. It can't be, I'm just going to stand up here and shoot all you guys. It has to be focused. He has to argue why Trump is killing the party. He can use these other people as an example.
Sure.
The problem he has is, what does he say when someone says to him, that's great, Chris, but like you said you would support Donald Trump if he wins the nomination, or you wouldn't be on the stage. So, it's a box that they've put him in. But I think he ought to just focus on Trump.
But, I think the other part too, Rick, is that I believe, correct me if I'm wrong, guys, he'll be the only one there who's actually done this before. Right? He's been on the stage.
That's a really good point.
That is a great point, Reed. I had not thought about that, but that's exactly right.
The rest of as my dad likes to say, when you get a new job, you spend the first 2 months trying to figure out where the bathroom is and how to turn the lights on, right? So they're going to get up there. It's going to be like, like a quarterback at the beginning of a game, right? They overthrow everything in that first drive because they're so jacked up, and then they settle down. Well, here, to your point, Stuart, you don't have time to settle down, right? Like you're in the thick of you're in the thick of it, and the defensive linemen are coming from you to to torture the metaphor. And so Christie will go in. Like, first of all, I'm probably better at this than these guys. I've been here before. Trump isn't here, so I don't really have to worry about him. And I would say this is that I think on the attack, yes, I agree. Christie should stay on Trump. But, Stuart, to your point, if someone comes after him on the rebound, I think he should let him have it, just to make them appear weak.
There's a sort of
oh yeah, Pence will be there too. We forgot about.
We all forget about Mike Pence.
Poor Mike Pence. The crowd.
America's afterthought. Mike Pence.
The crowd is what he should be. The crowd is going to be a big player in this debate.
Yeah.
So Christie's going to get booed, and he needs to have embraced that.
Yeah.
One of the things, if you go back when Rick Perry ran in 2012. First debate was the Ronald Reagan Library, and he couldn't believe that Mitt Romney was going after him. And then in another debate, he was booed by the crowd because he wasn't sort of angry enough about immigration. Because he actually used to be sort of a moderate in a Texas way. He was against the wall. He had this line, if you build a 20-foot wall, someone's going to be in the 21-foot ladder business. That's not what we need to do.
Well, and I remember he used to say, because I went to high school and college down there. I worked for George W. Bush when Perry was lieutenant governor, which is if somebody has left their home, crossed the Rio Grande, come here, been a good resident of Texas. This was talking about public education, and they want to better themselves. We should let them do that. Remember, that was Rick Perry.
I know.
Perry, y'all.
So he got booed, and he didn't know how to deal with that. So the crowd is going to be a big factor in this, and I think you have to assume the crowd is going to be pro-Trump because most of the Republicans are.
Yeah, I think that's right, guys. Let me ask you this question. I was pondering this a little earlier. Do you guys agree with me that the person who has the most to lose on stage tomorrow night is DeSantis?
Yes.
Yeah.
Absolutely. I mean, I think
it's do or die for him at this point.
Right. I think he cannot afford a single blink. I mean, not a single blink, not a misstep, not a.
That's why if you were writing his opening statement, you'd say, "Look, I'm Ron DeSantis. This is a debate. I just want to say, I think every person on this stage would be a better president than Joe Biden. And I'm going to spend this debate talking about why I think I should be the opposition, the candidate, the person who can take the Republican Party against Joe Biden. Mm-hmm. So, look, you guys do what you want to do. I'm going to debate Joe Biden." And then I would set that, just straight out say it. And I would stick to it as much as possible. And I would have a couple of lines like, nice try, something like that when he gets attacked. I just don't think he has the discipline to do that.
But Stuart, right. I mean, I remember being in a room, years ago where the strategist of one campaign was on the phone with maybe the strategist of a couple of other campaigns, right? Saying, look, you may not get the best of him. I may not get the best of him, but I'll tell you this, he could have his canned lines ready, but he won't be able to hold it together for all of us.
Right.
Yeah. That's a really interesting point. If these candidates join together with some sort of alliance, and I have to say, I have tried to do that before. I've tried to get candidates to not do as many debates.
Right.
And I think pretty much my failure rate is 100% on both counts.
Right.
Because at the end of the day, they're going to do whatever they think is their best interest in that moment. And, the problem you have is who is your audience for this debate? I mean, that's a fundamental question you have to ask yourself. Is it the room? Is it donors? Is it Iowa voters? Is it New Hampshire voters? You really need to go through a process of asking yourself for that. Like, who is it that I'm talking to in this debate? And those are really the only people you should talk to. Because, the surest way to get 10% is try to get 50%. Mm-hmm. So, these things are very tricky, but you have to go in with something that you feel that you have to accomplish strategically and then go about doing it. And I just don't know if I don't think they're sort of clear-eyed enough about this to try to do it.
Yeah. And again, the pucker factor will be really high for all of these people.
Yeah,
Right?
I think that's what everybody watching, even prepping these things, is very nerve wracking. It's very tense. The stakes are so high. Everyone understands that this is, in this day and age. Now they understand a good debate performance can fund your campaign for a month or more. A bad debate performance will cut you off, and you'll be in the you won't get booked on media. You won't raise small dollars on your email fundraising. You'll stop, getting on the big stage the next time around, because the bracket's going to get higher to be on the stage as these debates progress.
Well, so Rick, let's talk about the two people, I should say, that we have not discussed yet so far are the moderators, Bret Baier and Martha MacCallum from Fox News.
Mm-hmm.
Baier, I assume, and I haven't seen Bret in person for several years, but I assume he will try and maintain some level of not only dignity, but also credibility with the world. I'm not so sure about MacCallum, but like, they're not going to they want ratings. They want fireworks. They're not going to let these guys off the hook necessarily.
No, they're going to throw as much red meat on the stage as they possibly can and make these guys fight over it. And they will, even if it's like an elliptical comment by someone, they'll say, I think Governor Christie was talking about you, Governor DeSantis. What do you say to that? Right. Even if it's not by name, because remember, the rules say if they mention you by name, you get to respond. That's where these debates always go into the weird rabbit hole, because once you start getting the ping pong back and forth, it's great TV, it's great for ratings, but it's bad for keeping the debate on track. So when we're talking about roughly 70 minutes of time, or 65 minutes of time where they have the opportunity to actually show their stuff, a lot of it will drill down deeper and deeper into this weird defensive crouch that candidates get. When someone says something critical of them, they have their can lines. And I think that MacCallum and Baier will probably do a lot of that in order to stir it up. But, look, they're all
generally.
Go ahead, Stu. Go.
Yeah, no, I mean, generally, the most aggressive candidate wins a debate. I mean, if you had sort of one rule of thumb, and I think that'll probably end up being the case. So that's the problem. If you're Nikki Haley or you're Scott, and you want to go in to try to stir some embers of some George Bush compassionate conservatism, it comes across as just mushy. It's not going to be memorable. So you have to.
It's out of another time, right?
Yeah, it's right. Going to, it's how is that going to be something that proves that you should be president of the United States, you should lead the Republican Party?
Like Stuart, and Rick, we used to think about these things, and you talked about the prep, right? The policy nerds would bring out all their binders and try and shove every last bullet point into a candidate's head, and the campaign manager and the strategist would say, stop doing that. And then there'd be one other guy go, no. He really needs to know that, subsection D, Article 3, like that's the thing that's going to make the difference. And
right. So who is the deputy trade minister of Tajikistan?
Right. Yeah. But like, that's all out the window, right? There's none of that.
No.
Like, what thing that's about the betterment of the country are they going to discuss? I'm sure they'll bring
my theory of the case. I wrote
Ukraine,
about this.
What else?
Yeah. Here's my theory of the case. I wrote about this today. I think they're all going to try to describe the alternate reality version of the American economy. They're all going to say Joe Biden is the worst economy in history, even though we've got record job growth. They're going to say jobs are nowhere to be found, even though there are 1.6 jobs for every remaining job applicant. They're going to say, the world is falling apart. Inflation is killing us. They're going to describe this dystopian economic hellscape that doesn't exist. I think it's important to keep an eye on that and the border stuff. They're going to be basically saying, the border's wide open. 50 million MS-13 people are here, and they're parking dump trucks of fentanyl outside of daycare centers. They're going to do all in on the crazy, dark, apocalyptic vision of America, because that's what their base responds to. They love that agit porn. They love that fear stuff. And so I think you'll see that when it's not directed internally, it'll be directed externally. But I think a lot of it will be the questions to them about Trump. I think most of this debate's going to be, they're going to be asking, are you going to back Trump? Are you going to pardon Trump? Are you going to be with Trump when he's the nominee? All of them are going to be That's a wedge they're all going to find themselves in.
Stu, what do you think they're? I'm used the word substance, and I'm stretching it as far as I can, like silly putty. I mean, is there going to be any substance in this?
Well, the bar for debate substance is pretty low. Remember, Herman Cain, had 999.
Listen, God rest Herman Cain's soul. Another death at
another
the hands
victim of Trump. Another example of everything
right.
Trump
so,
dies.
Look, if I was doing this, I would put out an economic plan like the day before or the morning of the debate. I would then just reference that. I think that it's important to have this stuff to say that I have an economic plan. I wouldn't try to explain it.
Right.
You just, it goes to, can you present a credible case to why you should be president of the United States? And ultimately, I think that is the bigger candidate here is going to win. Trump has a reason that he wants to be president of the United States. It's revenge. It's the final battle. It's us against them.
Avoiding prison.
There's a lot of movies about that, right? I mean, that's the Magnificent Seven. That's High Noon. He sees them that way. So he knows who he is in this movie, which is another kind of interesting way to, I've done this in debate prep, who are you in this movie? And, DeSantis, well, his wife compares him to Jesus. So, I don't think that's really a compelling reason to be like, I'm Jesus, so vote for me, And that's the thing. They have to go. Christie has a reason because he thinks that Donald Trump is a crook and he shouldn't be president. That's a reason. And Hutchison does too. But what else? And that's why I think, there's sort of two debates here. There's a debate for 24 and there's a debate for 28. And I think a lot of the people on that stage are debating for 28. And they know that, which goes to why they're not going to go after Trump, but they're going to be out there. They're going to try to present themselves and show some donors that maybe they can do it. And ultimately, all of those people on stage are hoping Biden will win if they're not the nominee.
Oh yeah,
because they don't care about they don't care about the country,
but of course,
at all.
The flip side of that, Stuart, is that if you wait around for 28 and the guy wins, there ain't going to be a 28, right? At least not with you in it. So,
yeah, let me tell you something. At that point, it will be Prince Donald Trump Jr., the heir apparent to the throne if Trump wins again. We won't have. Right. It'll be like the elections that they used to hold in Iraq. Saddam Hussein and the Ba'ath Party received 102% of the vote.
Right. All right, guys. Well, listen, in our last few minutes here, let's talk about things that you guys are looking at that you feel like our listeners and viewers should see. So, Rick, kick us off here.
Well, look, I'm obviously watching Donald Trump get edged closer and closer and closer to having his ass put in jail for tweeting about these trials. And he is rapidly reaching the point where he cannot control himself. He can't stop himself. And so we're starting to see that he may spend some time in the Fulton County jail while his lawyers try to unfuck him from truth socialing all day and saying maniacal things. And it's a fascinating externality in this thing. They won't hold him forever. They'll bond him out somehow. But he is really skating to the edge. The self-destructiveness is quite remarkable. And it's partly driven because, from my understanding, Mark Meadows is particularly in Trump's brain right now, and he's trying to kill him off. So,
well, as we know, for at least for us, the three of us in particular, Mark Meadows has a special place in our heart. So,
coming for you, Mark. Never
best
forget.
Of luck to you. All right, Stu, how about you?
Look, I have to just go on the record saying that the first person that I ever heard in a serious way say that Donald Trump is going to end up in jail was Rick Wilson. And I remember this very clearly because, I thought that Rick was just sort of like saying it for effect or something, but it was clear he really believed it. And I think that is proving to be more true. He's going to be very active.
I have manifested jail for Trump.
That is where Trump is going to
end up.
Look, I'm watching the Biden campaign because they're going to launch their first ads around this. I think the Biden campaign ran a really great campaign in 2020. I think they know what they're doing. I think they're confident. I think that they have an ability to go through low periods and not chase every news cycle. So I think it's going to be really interesting to watch their ads because I think in the ideal campaign, the first ad you run should be the last ad you run. Mm-hmm. There are arguments in front of a jury. Ladies and gentlemen of the jury, in this campaign, in this trial, I am going to prove these points. And at the end, you ought to say, ladies and gentlemen, we have proven these points. Mm-hmm. And I think they're going to have a pretty clear tell of how they're going to run this campaign with this first ad blitz. And it'd be interesting to watch.
And it's 25, it's supposed to be, there's a flight, I think, starting tomorrow. But they said it's $25 million over all the states that we've spent so much time and effort and energy and, sweat and everything else in. So, and that's a hell of a head start, right? When, yes, is Trump the likely nominee? He is, but he's not yet. And being able to start this early, some of us would think, oh my God, it's way too early, but it is what it is. The one thing I'm looking at is that, we are creeping towards the end of the congressional recess here. They'll be back, I assume, sometime after Labor Day. Yep. We're also getting into the time when we're past the debt ceiling. We're now to government shutdown time, because
here we go again.
Charm and they just love a government shutdown. And so the wingers, right, the MAGA people, they've gotten taken for a ride so far by McCarthy and the establishment and the Democrats. Yep. And I think they've had about enough of that. So it'll be interesting to see whether or not McCarthy's got one more, card up his sleeve he can play. Because remember that his constituents are not the people of Bakersfield, really not even his conference, certainly not the 20 people in the MAGA crowd. It's, the Chamber of Commerce, Wall Street, right. Every major financial whatever 100%. In the country. And, they're saying, look, stocks are getting better. Inflation's flattening out. This is going to, we're looking at probably a pretty good, 12 to 18 months of economic data here. You're not going to let these idiots screw it up. And I think that, I don't know if it cost him his job. None of them, frankly, have seemed like they have the cojones yet to take him on, right? To actually file those papers to remove him from the speaker's chair. But we'll see. And, going along with that, we could have they want to impeach Biden. They want to impeach Merrick Garland. They want to impeach Mayorkas, everything else. So the wingers haven't gotten anything this year. And I assume that they're going to start screaming from the rafters sooner than later that they're going to want somebody's head on a platter. So.
Yeah, it's a really good point.
Which is why I think they stuck. Why I think they stuck with DeSantis for a while, because that culture war stuff from him is pretty pure juice. They want it, but they're not. They're the ones in Congress I think you're right. They're going to get riled up. And look, the other ironic thing is the people in Congress that yelled at us when we said the debt ceiling was a big deal. And we went after some of the no labels problem solvers in quotes. Mm-hmm. They got very upset. But here we are again. And these people are going to do the same thing again. They're going to wait to drag it out and cause economic uncertainty a second time.
I would just like to say to Congressman Don Bacon from Nebraska, I will be seeing you soon, sir. It was fun to tussle with you last time. And we'll see. All right. Everybody out there, thank you so much. Everybody, make sure to tune into Rick and the Enemies List podcast. Make sure to tune into that Trippy show. Please also listen to the Lincoln Project podcast. Stuart's got new writing up. Please check out Ruth Ben-Ghiat's new piece up now at Resolute Square. She is an absolute great writer when it comes to this stuff, and check out the whole stable of writers and podcasts we have over there at Resolute Square. We please track all of our social media accounts and everything else, because guys, it will be wild and woolly for the next 24 hours. If you don't hear us tomorrow, you'll hear us on Thursday. Until then, everybody have a great night. Thanks.
See you guys.